Hello everyone, hope you all are doing great and welcome to this new video course from devtechie.com. And in this video course we're going to be learning how to build this favorite places, DevTechie's favorite places app using SwiftUI, CoreData, MVVM design pattern, and we're going to be utilizing some of the iOS 16.4 features that have been recently released. So we're going to be using SwiftUI for iOS 16.4, which is supported under Xcode 14.3 version. So this is the most latest and greatest at the time of recording, as far as I know, for the Xcode, iOS, and for your SwiftUI versions. Okay, all right, so first let me go ahead and showcase you what we're going to build, and everything we're going to build is going to be from scratch. So we're going to start with the UI, CoreData, all the components, basically networking calls, and we're going to be using async and await in certain situations to download images and stuff like that. So you're going to see how that works, but let me give you a quick walkthrough of what we're going to be building. So we're going to have this basically the main home screen, and this app has only two screens if you count the add places button, then in total 3 screens. But add button is actually a sheet, or add new place is a sheet, so I'm not gonna call it as a full view. Okay, so we have the main view, which is the list view, which lists out all the favorite places for devtechie.com, and then once you tap on one of these, you actually go into the detail view. Under the detail view, you get the same image basically that appears as a background, and then you have a detail section right at the bottom, which is scrollable, essentially telling you what this place is, where it is, and a little bit about the place. Now these notes, although I've copied it from Wikipedia, the intent for the app is to capture your own notes about a place that you liked, and basically saving that for your memories. If you want to revisit them, what did you like, what did you not like, and all that sort of good stuff. So so you're gonna actually have a notes section, and then you're gonna have a map view to give you a general idea where this place is. And right at the bottom, there's a delete button, which will actually help you delete this particular entry if you don't want this to be saved in your list. Okay, and the save, the fetch, save, and delete, all these functionalities are basically backed by CoreData. Okay, so you can basically view the detail. You can go to the next view and basically check out what the next entry is. So in this case, I have Great Pyramid of Giza, and then you can check that out. So this is the last one, which right now we have, and as you can see, even the card itself that's on the list view displays some information about the place, and we have used some of the materials for this to display, how these this information is basically displayed onto the screen. So this is the Golden Gate Bridge, and this is in San Francisco, United States, and you tap on it, you actually get a little bit more detail about it. Once again, you can delete the entry, or you can actually just check out where it is. Okay, so now this was basically what we have, and basically what I've already created. Now let me create another entry and show you the add functionality. So I'm going to click on this plus button, which is going to launch this newly introduced sheet, and this sheet is basically a sheet that uses presentation detent and presentation background, which presentation detent was introduced in iOS 16, and the background, this blur background, the thin material background, was introduced in iOS 16.4. So we're going to be using that, and this this form actually requires you to enter some of the information about the new place that you want to enter. So I'm gonna basically enter the Coliseum. Okay, and Coliseum is located in Rome. So I'm gonna enter Rome, and for the country I'm gonna say this is basically in Italy, I believe. If I can type, yeah, there you go, Italy. And for the notes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy it from the Wikipedia. Okay, so let me go ahead and copy it, and I'll actually get the information right up. Okay, so this is the notes, and okay, so now next thing we're going to do is we're going to basically get the image for the Coliseum, and basically the get image is going to is a view that actually helps you choose the image, and the image is being fetched from the internet, so you can choose the image that you like. I like this one, so I can actually say this one, or let's say, like, try a little bit better one where like the whole Coliseum view is basically there. So a little bit more. Okay, this was good, but let's try another one. Okay, so this is actually good. So I'm going to save this one, and the entry is added at the very end. And as you can see, this is basically using the image that we chose. It has, like, all the information about the place, and we are also fetching the map information from the information that we entered, and we're displaying a map around that place, basically where it is. And here is the information that I entered. Now, if I want to basically delete for some reason, I can simply click delete, and the entry is gonna disappear from the list. Okay, so this is basically the app that we're gonna be building. And once again, the intent for the app is to learn a little bit more about how CoreData is integrated in SwiftUI, and we're going to be using basically we're going to be creating this using MVVM design pattern. Reason is because we want to create something that can be reused regardless of your presentation layer. That means if you want to take the same logic minus SwiftUI and put it in a UI kit, you should still be able to work with that. Okay, so basically we are creating something that is much more common in larger organizations where you don't directly use just SwiftUI modifiers or SwiftUI convenience functions to basically display the content. That is relevant more for, like, smaller scale apps, but for large scale apps, most of the time you're going to see a lot of reusable custom components being created, and not only the components for UI, but components for the back layer, basically the layer that supports the whole business logic. So that's why we are sticking to MVVM design pattern in this, and we're going to be creating our CoreData manager and everything around it to make sure that we actually create a good reusable architecture in order for us to be able to support more than one presentation layers. Okay, all right, with that said, I hope you are excited to join me in this journey to learn and build this app together. I will see you guys inside the course. Thank you. Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're gonna get started with the project setup. So let's go ahead and start by creating a brand new project. And what I've done is I've opened basically a create new from the file new create new project, or you can press Command Shift N in order to open this dialog, and basically we land right here on this screen. Now we're going to choose iOS because the app that we are building is for iOS, and we are going to select the app template. Okay, and under the app template, once we have selected, the next button is going to be enabled. So we're going to simply click on next. The next screen that is presented is basically a simple information about the app. So basically what Xcode wants to know, what the product name is going to be, and this product name is going to be basically displayed as a name underneath your app icon on your device, on your user's device. Then you have your team. So let's say if you have Apple developer license, you can actually select a team, or you can leave it none. It's not required right now, so I'm leaving it none, so we don't have to basically have the Apple developer account, because there is no functionality, like, we are not using any functionality that needs one. All right, so I'm gonna basically simply name this project as favorite places. All right, and once again, like I said, team is not required. If you have the license, go ahead and choose that. And then we're going to move on to the next field, which is organization identifier. Now, organization identifier is an important piece of information for your project, because this is what creates a unique bundle ID. Now, bundle ID is important because when you are going to submit your app to the App Store, Apple wants to know if this app is unique, and its name is unique, and it can uniquely locate the app, and it uses the bundle identifier to uniquely identify each app. So the best practice is to reverse a domain name you might have, and basically use that as your organization identifier. So what I've done here is I've done just that, reverse the domain name, which is devtechie.com. So I've done com.devtechie, and this is a pretty common practice that you're going to see across the board. Then you have the bundle identifier, which is automatically generated for you. So as you are typing, Xcode actually creates that bundle identifier for you, and this bundle identifier actually becomes the information about your app, and it's going to be available to you under info.plist. So we're going to see where this information is. Now for the interface, the presentation layer, we are going to be using SwiftUI, but we have both SwiftUI and Storyboard, which is UIKit, available for us to use. Now if you're choosing SwiftUI, at the moment the only language that actually SwiftUI supports is Swift. If you had, let's say, UIKit, then you can write your app either in Swift or Objective-C. So let's go ahead and revert it back to SwiftUI and language as Swift. Now we're going to leave the use CoreData and include test checked off. Okay, we're going to include CoreData a little bit later in the series, and you're going to see how you can basically support CoreData or add the support for CoreData into your existing app if you have created an app without these options checked. Okay, and it gives you a little bit more control how you want to name the data model and where you want to locate it, how you want to initialize it, and all that all those good things. Okay, so with that said, now we are ready to create our project. So I'm going to pause the video, create a project at a location of my choosing, and you're going to do the same. So just click on next, and basically it's going to present, Xcode is going to present a dialog asking you where do you want to save this. And once you have saved the project, we both are going to land on the same screen, which is going to be this one. Alright, so once you have saved your project, you're gonna basically land right here. Now this is the standard SwiftUI template, which is created for you by Xcode out of the box. Okay, it has some of the basic information already available. It does a pretty good job basically putting something that you can right away visualize inside the preview side, which is actually also known as canvas. So if you don't have the canvas enabled, by default it will be, just go ahead and click on this icon right here for the to show the editor options, and then you can choose canvas, and that will actually get you your canvas loaded. Alternatively, you can choose the you can use the option, command, and enter keyboard shortcut to display your canvas. So option command enter is going to basically enable your preview or the canvas. All right, now before we start, let me show you where the information that you entered went. Okay, so if you go click on your project and click on the info.plist, you're going to see that you have this thing called bundle identifier, and bundle identifier is basically located for you. So you have product bundle identifier. Okay, and the product bundle identifier is now moved into the build setting because it can be actually displayed or changed dynamically. So you can actually choose that option. So if you go under build settings, so this is where the bundle identifier is coming from. By the way, you are free to replace this. Instead of selecting it dynamically, you can actually replace with your own bundle identifier, but the best practice is to have it in the build setting, so you can actually create build setting differently for different environments. Let's say you are in the debug and you want to create a build setting for debug, then you can actually create those, and this value right here still stays parameterized. Okay, so if you go under build setting and let's see what this is called, product bundle identifier. So we're going to simply type product here, and there you can see that you have product bundle identifier, and we have com.devtechie.favorite places, and you also have your product name, which is once again the string that is actually displayed underneath your app name. Okay, so so this is basically how you can find out what your bundle identifier or your product name is. Now in this general tab, you're going to see what are the things that are supported. So now, because we are building these apps in SwiftUI by default is SwiftUI apps can basically render interface for all these other environments. You can have your app work for iPad and for Mac, where they are designed for iPad, and with the SDK as iOS. So that's what this is displaying, that supported destinations are these. We're not gonna touch these, so we're gonna leave it as is. Now next is minimum deployments. Minimum deployments is basically what's the minimum OS target that you want to actually deploy this app for. Now in our case, I'm going to use the latest and greatest. The reason is we are choosing to use some of the features that are available in Xcode 14.3 and iOS 16.4. And that reminds me, let me show you the version that we are using. So we are using Xcode version 14.3, which is recently released, and it includes some of the really cool additions that I wanted to actually use. Okay, now this is another place where you can see your bundle identifier and your display name. Okay, so you can change your display name, but you cannot touch your bundle identifier, because for that you'd have to go to product setting and change from there. You have your apps version and build version that you can specify here, and these are basically all the orientations that your app actually supports. So for example, in case of iPhone, we are supporting portrait, landscape left, landscape right, iPad, we have all the options available, and status bar style is default. Okay, all right, and we can actually say this app requires a full screen, and we can actually specify that way the status bar is not even shown. So if you're creating a game, you'd actually select this one, so your user can basically, so you can provide a fully immersive experience for your games. Okay, now you have other sections like app icon, launch screens, etc. If there is any intents that are supported for SwiftUI, like any frameworks and stuff, and deployment assets. Now, development assets are basically your preview content. So there's a folder here. Now, reason it says development assets because at the time of release build, this folder is not going to be included, or anything that's listed under development assets is not going to go as your final release build. And you don't want that because that may impact your binary size, and there's no use because that's your development data. Okay, for that reason, this section is there for you to control what and what not you want to include in your release bundle. Okay. All right, so that's a quick look at all the settings. Now you have this app, which is your favorite places app. This is your main entry point. That's why it's decorated with the main property wrapper, and basically says that this is basically the app which has a window group defined, and this window group actually launches the main page, which is the content view. So I'm going to click on the right click on the content view and jump onto the definition, and we're gonna land right here on this screen, which was our first screen that we saw. Okay, so this is gonna be basically our starting point, and we're gonna basically call our home view from here. So rather than listing all the home related things here, the home view here, or the favorite places list view right here, we are going to just call that view. All right, you have your preview section at the bottom, which actually uses content view and displays this preview right here. So you can control how you want to display your preview. For example, if I want to display this preview in dark mode, I can simply say preferred color scheme is dark, and your preview is gonna take basically that dark mode appearance. Okay, now next is assets. We're going to be using assets to basically define some of the static assets, like static images, that we're gonna basically use during the development, and just to see how our cards are being laid out and stuff like that. But later on, when we are actually ready with CoreData and a little bit of networking with async and await, we're gonna switch that logic and basically download all those images from the internet. Okay, so we're gonna use asset space, and for the preview content, we're not gonna use that much, but you're more than welcome to use basically preview assets. So basically, these are the assets that you want to display under when your content is being previewed. Now, reason I'm not going to do this during the tutorial phase or during this course phase, because I need those assets available for more than preview. So I want to be able to execute the app and display that in the simulator and see all the assets that we have actually located right here. Okay, they're going to be very few assets, 4 or 5 images, so it's not going to affect our binary size that much. All right, so this was a quick walkthrough of Xcode on its own, and with that we are now ready to get started, and in the next video we're gonna start working towards our app. Okay, so I'll see you guys there. Thank you. Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to be creating our place view model. We're going to start there, and this place view model is going to be a class that is going to be identifiable, and we're going to use this class to render our view. And this class is also going to provide some of the sample data that we can use to basically lay out our views and display the information during the early phases of the development. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and downloaded some of the images for the places that I like, and I've actually put them in the assets folder right here. So I've got Eiffel Tower. Okay, so I found this really cool photo for Eiffel Tower on the internet and actually downloaded from there, and all these images are downloaded from unsplash.com. so check out the website and give the photographers or the artists, like, shout out. All right, so I've got Eiffel Tower right here. I've got a Golden Gate, a really beautiful photo of Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And then this third one, this one is called Hawa Mahal, and basically what it means is it's a wind palace in Jaipur, India, and it's really cool, like, really big palace. So that's another place that I actually decided to add in this list. So we can actually basically build our static, or start our development with these statically defined places. All right, so before we actually get started and get creating our files, it's a good idea to structure them in a way where we can actually easily find all the related files. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new group, and first group I'm going to name as views. Okay, so this folder is basically gonna be hosting all the other views other than the content view. I'm not gonna move that. I'm gonna leave it at the top level. Next is gonna be the view models. Okay, and this is an Xcode bug that I actually found, where as soon as you start typing, the first letter becomes like, almost like invisible, and then as soon as you hit enter, everything appears just right. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I've got basically another group, and this one is going to be resources, and as you can see, it's basically disappeared. I think it's like, taking a dark color for the font, but if I just erase everything and say resources, it actually does work fine. Okay, so this is going to be the resources, where we're going to basically store our location manager that we're going to use to fetch the location information and the map information, stuff like that. It's also going to be hosting basically our data model, our core data manager. Okay, so these are going to be 3 folders that we're going to be working with, and they're going to help us better organize ourselves, okay, our code. Okay, so we're going to start with this view model, and we're going to create a new file here, and this new file is going to be a Swift file from the file template, and I'm going to click next, basically creating this view. Now you want to make sure that target is selected for our current app, and the group under which it's going is view model. And also the folder structure actually says this view model. If there is any tag, you can actually define that. I honestly don't use this much, so the tag field much, so I'm gonna leave it as empty, and I'm gonna name this guy as view place view model .swift. Okay, and it's basically going to create a simple file with nothing but just the import statement. That is all good. We can actually import SwiftUI package as well, just so we can actually use some of the properties if we need to. All right, next thing we're going to do is that we're going to create a class called place view model. Okay, and your view models are usually created as class because classes are passed by reference, so you can actually easily pass them around once they are initialized. And for the models, not view model, but for just the models part, which we are not going to create in this case because our models are going to be created by the data model. But if we were to create models, those models are usually created as structs because those are values that we want to actually map, and those are the value types that we want to keep. So we're going to keep separate copy for each individual one of them, and then view model takes the responsibility to distribute those copies because it is a pass by reference. All right, so with place view model in place, we're gonna make sure that it conforms to identifiable protocol. Now, identifiable protocol is very useful in case of SwiftUI because it helps each individual entity that is defined as place view model identify itself, and it helps SwiftUI determine which view we are working with and all the magic that actually SwiftUI does by whether it is when you select a row, it displays the content, and select sorting the correct content and identifying each individual row in on its own. So when you tap on it, you see the information. All that is possible because of the ID, or the identifiable. ID is the required property for the identifiable protocol, which is pretty easy because you can just use UUID and define your ID. So pretty easy protocol to work with, very handy, and SwiftUI, it does wonders. Okay, so we're gonna simply provide the conformance requirement, which is providing a property called ID, and type is going to be UUID. Next is going to be the name, which is going to be a string type, and then city, which is going to be a string type too. We're going to store country, another string, and notes about the place. Now we're going to basically create an image, and we're going to store image data into the CoreData. Okay, there are a few strategies that you can use to store images in CoreData. Now in this case, we are storing only one image, so rather than going to your folder or file manager and store the image in the folder structure, I thought we can convert it into image data and save it there to show you one of the use case. Now you can alternatively, what you can do is you can create a file under file manager, get the location string and store that in the CoreData, and that works great as well. Now the file manager version of storing image is actually faster if you have too many images or too big images. In this mode, the one that we are going to use is actually faster because everything is cached locally in CoreData as a binary data, as a data blob, and we can actually directly fetch that data, but it's only good for small size images. Our images are not that big and not that many entries, so we should be fine. But if you are looking for an alternate way, check out the file manager way. Okay, so we're going to create our image name, and this is basically, I called it image name. I'm going to keep it image name, but should have better name would have been place image. Let's say place image. Okay, all right, it's going to be of image type. Now this is our view model, and we're going to basically work with CoreData. When we are returning the image, actual image, we're going to return the image rather than returning data. But when we're going to store that information into the CoreData, we're going to convert that into data format. Okay, a raw binary data format. All right, now we need our initializer. Now let's go ahead and see if SwiftUI or Xcode can help us with initializer. Well, it doesn't want to do it today, so that's fine. I'm gonna just type it out really quickly. and we're going to make sure that all the properties that we have here are initialized with the values that are provided by the initializer. And this is going to be useful when we are doing that transformation for the place view or place model that's been stored and created by CoreData. Okay, so we're going to simply say self.id is equal to id self.name. All right, and that is basically going to initialize all the properties that we have defined inside our place view model. Okay, now our place view model is also going to provide some sample data, and this sample data is basically going to be utilized for our development phase when we are developing our cards and stuff, and we have not introduced CoreData part. Till that time, we're going to work with this. This is going to help us, like, basically lay out our views a little bit faster. Okay, so we're going to simply create an extension to our place view model, and we are going to create a static variable called sample data. This static variable is going to return an array of place view model, and we are simply going to return an empty array for now, so I can actually copy some of the information. Now, this will not work in I have a sample project already created. That's where I'm copying it from, but there is one property name which is different, and we actually named it different. That's why it is complaining. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this image name into place name, and there we have it. Okay, so all the errors should go away, and this is our place view model, basically ready to be utilized within a place list view model, which is going to be the next topic for the video. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video where we're going to be creating our place list view model with sample data. Okay, so I'll see you guys there. Thank you. Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to be creating our places list view model, and we're going to basically create this as a class which is going to conform to observable object, because we're going to have two publishers or published properties, so we can actually update our UI as soon as the new value becomes available. Okay, so ultimately basically right now we're going to build this this class using sample data, but eventually we're going to basically replace that logic by fetching all the data from CoreData Manager, and CoreData Manager is going to take the responsibility to update those published properties or the publishers, and then those values will be received at the SwiftUI level, basically for the main view, which is going to render all the favorite places. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new file, and we're going to select a Swift file template, and we're going to name this places list view model. Okay, import from foundation is good. We're also going to import SwiftUI, and let's go ahead and import UIKit as well. Okay, we're going to create a class called places list view model, and this is once again going to conform to observable object protocol. Now this protocol is basically responsible for making sure that this class basically becomes a publisher, and the properties that are marked with @published property wrapper can publish or emit those events to the subscribed properties. And SwiftUI actually handles that subscription automatically, and we're going to see how we actually get that logic in place. But this class is basically going to have the conformance for observable object protocol. Now, there is no set requirement for observable object protocol. It just gives you the ability to define properties or decorate properties with @published property wrapper. So we're going to create two of the properties. First one is going to be places, which is going to be an array of place view model, which we created in the last video. And there's going to be another one which is going to basically be responsible to show the add sheet. So basically this is where we're going to launch the add sheet modal, and we're going to toggle this property to display the sheet and hide the sheet. Okay, now during the initialization process, we want to make sure we actually fetch the data. So as soon as the class is initialized, we want to fetch data. So we're going to create a function called fetch places. And this function is not created yet. So let's go ahead and create this. So this function is not only going to be called by the initializer, but we will also call this to refresh our list. Okay, now for now we're going to fetch data from our sample list. So we're going to simply say places is equal to place view model dot sample data. Now what this is going to do is it's going to basically fetch data that is actually located in the sample data and populate the places property. Now, because places property is marked with @published property wrapper, that means that all the values, all the changes that are actually recently updated or stored, they're going to be published and emitted as a publisher, and which is basically sort of like a combine. So you're building some of the combine related functionalities, and published actually helps you create your regular properties and turn them into a publisher subscriber model. In a sense, in the other word, basically what you're doing is you're creating or following the reactive programming model. Okay, just like what you follow on the combine side. All right, with that, we actually have created the places list model. In the future video, we're going to actually add CoreData manager logic here, and we're going to basically just comment this part right here. But for now, to build this UI, we're going to use sample data, and then we're going to basically tie everything together using CoreData manager when that class is created. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop on to the next video, where we are going to create our add place view model, which is going to help us add new place into the database. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we are going to be creating our add place view model. So let's go ahead and create that view model by creating a new file. We're going to choose SwiftUI as the template, and we're going to name this add place VM for view model. Okay, now same imports are going to go into place, SwiftUI and UIKit. We're going to create a class add place view model. Once again, we're going to conform to the observable object protocol, and we're going to have few published properties. Now, we're going to basically tie these published properties directly to our text views, which are going to be basically our data entry fields. So we're going to create 5 different properties. 4 of them are going to be tied directly to the text field. 5th one is going to be basically a show progress indicator to display the progress view while we are saving data into the CoreData. Okay, so we're going to create published properties. First one is name is going to be of type string, and initial value is going to be empty. I'm going to copy and paste and create one property for city, another one for country, and one for notes. Okay, so these are our text field related. properties. Then we're going to have progress related properties. And the progress related property is going to be just one, which is going to be called show progress. And this is going to be of type Boolean. So we're going to simply initialize this with the value of false. So SwiftUI or Swift language can basically implicitly determine the type. Okay. Next set of properties are going to be related to the image. So if you recall, in our sample app, we had this get image button, which actually gets the image. It fetches the image from Unsplash and it displays that in a preview window. So what we want to do is we want to basically fetch that image and store it somewhere in the form of image and image data. So both of those published properties are going to be defined inside the add place view model. Okay, so this is going to be image related props. All right, first one is going to be image, and this one is going to be of type image. AGE, there you go. Okay, and this is going to be an optional property. Next one is going to be for image data, and this is once again going to be an optional image or optional data as well. Okay, optional data. Okay, so these two properties are optional. We want to check and make sure that there is some value that is in this before we render this information, and that is going to be the indicator that we're going to use to determine whether the image is loaded or not. Okay, now after this we're going to have a function called save data or save place. Okay, and this is going to be an async function. Okay, so it's asynchronously gonna call the CoreData manager. Okay, so this is gonna be an async function, and we're gonna basically create CoreData manager save place logic here. Right now we're gonna leave it blank, and we're gonna fill the information as soon as we create our CoreData manager. All right. Next, we're going to basically create a function which is going to be responsible for getting the image for the place name. So we're going to create a function just like that, get image for place name, and place name is going to be string type. Once again, this is going to be an async function. Actually, we don't need this to be async because we're going to convert the image fetching part as asynchronous, and this part is automatically handled on the backend from the CoreData side on the background thread. Okay, so we need image to be async because we're gonna use async version of URL session to fetch the data from the internet. Okay, now first thing we're gonna do is we want to make sure that this place name that is passed in, if it has any spaces or special characters, they are properly encoded for the URL path. Okay, and that for that reason we're going to create an encoded property. So we're going to name this encoded name. This encoded name is going to come for place name, and we're going to add basically % encoding. With allowed character, we're going to say it's going to be URL path allowed. So whatever URL path allowed encoding is, that is going to be applied on the place name, and we're going to get a version of place name that is actually friendly for the URL path. Okay, then we're going to create our URL, which is going to be constructed from a string, and we're going to use an API from Unsplash. So Unsplash has an endpoint which is called source.unsplash.com. Next, it takes a size. So I'm using 1080 by 1350 as a size. And after question mark is basically the name of the place you're searching for. So we're going to use encoded name here. So we're going to simply put encoded name here. Okay, and then we actually get our URL. Okay, so what we can do is we know that this URL is always going to be there, so we can freely, like, basically force unwrap this value, and we also get the character replacement for URL paths. So that is something that I'm going to do as well. If you feel uncomfortable, put them against guard statement, but I think for these cases they're pretty certain, so we should be okay. Next, we're going to create a do try catch block, and we want to catch our error first. So let's go ahead and create do catch let, and we're going to have a print statement error.localize description. Okay, now this is basically the catch block, but we don't have any try here, so let's go ahead and add that. So we're gonna use a version of URL session that actually gives us access to an async await version of URL session and gets the data. And when the data is received, there are two set of information. Basically, it comes as a tuple with data and response. Okay, so we care about data, we don't care about response, so we're gonna put underscore for the response and data as the data value, and we're gonna say try await on the response for URL session dot shared session dot data, and we're gonna say data from the URL that we have constructed. Okay, so this basically is going to get us the image data that downloaded from the internet from unsplash.com, and then we're gonna await on main thread. So we're gonna use main actor.run, which actually moves us to the main thread. Right now, what we are doing is when we are making this call, this call is being made on the background thread. So if you try to basically update your published property from background thread, you're gonna get basically a purple warning, basically saying that this is an unexpected behavior. This can introduce an unexpected behavior because you're trying to update a published property from a background thread. We don't want to do that because sometimes that thread may not be available, or main thread may not get updated and you won't see the results. So in order to protect us from those situations, we're going to create main actor.run, which is going to move us or our thread basically to the main thread, and now we're gonna basically publish our properties. So for the image data, we're gonna say take the data, assign it to the image data property, which is a published property, and for the image, construct an image from UI image version, which actually takes data. Okay, and we know the data is actually coming, so we can just safely force unwrap that. All right, and then what we get is basically the image out of this URL for that particular place. Okay, all right, so this is the logic that we're gonna have basically on the add place view model, and this is gonna help us create add place view. Okay, so next up, I guess we should create our add place view and see how we can basically use this add place view model. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video where we're going to create our add place view in SwiftUI. Thank you. Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we are going to be creating our add new place view in SwiftUI. Okay, so before we actually build the view, let me show you what we are actually going to build. I've made some adjustment from the original draft that we saw earlier. Basically, I've increased the size of the model sheet, so we're going to see basically how we can adjust the size. I've also included a placeholder image with a blur effect to sort of show that this is where the placeholder image is going to appear. Okay, and the other thing is the image size itself is also big. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick basically a place which we can add here to see how this newly updated view looks like. So for this sample, let's go ahead and pick a place which is called Chichen Itza. It's in Tulum. It's a Mayan ruin located in Mexico. So let's go ahead and add the name. So the name is Chichen Itza. And it's actually not chicken. So CHICHEN, Chichen Itza, and it's located in a city called Tulum, and this is part of Mexico. And what it has is basically Mayan ruins, or well, I would say well preserved Mayan ruins. Okay, all right, so we're gonna get the image for Chichen Itza, and we're gonna see this is what the actual pyramid, which is Chichen Itza is basically a pyramid, looks like. So let's get another image, and as you can see that now the image is much more clear because it's big. It displays much more information about the place, so we can actually pick the one that we like. So let's go ahead and pick one that actually displays the most detail. This one I like because it has a little bit more information, and so I'm gonna save that, and let's go ahead and check out the last one. And there we have it. Basically our location is now updated, our nodes are updated, state is updated, basically the place, and our image, which is looking awesome. Okay, I've gone ahead and added a few more, like for example Niagara Falls is another one, and then there's one for Colosseum. So as you can see, the level of detail that we are providing, because our image is much more bigger, we can actually pick the right kind of image that we want to actually save for our favorite place. Okay, so this is the view that we're gonna be building in this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by creating a new file inside our views folder, which does not have anything at this moment. Okay, so I'm gonna select a SwiftUI view as the template, and we're gonna click next, and we're gonna create the name, basically create the file with the name add new place view. Okay, all right, so we have our preview loaded, and we're gonna basically get started right away. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create an environment property, and we need access to the dismiss key path. So we can actually dismiss our view, and we're gonna cache this inside a variable or property called dismiss. Okay, next we're gonna create a state object. Now state object is gonna help us observe the changes in our view model, and that's how we're going to create our view model object. Okay, so state object, and as you can see, state object is another property wrapper that actually instantiates a class that is observable. So basically that conforms to the observable protocol. Okay, so that's what we're going to use, state object or view model. And we're gonna basically initialize our add place view model right here. Okay, next what we're gonna do is we're gonna start constructing our view. So first thing we need is a Z stack. Okay, because we're gonna basically have a Z stack which is going to basically host all the content. Let me see if if there's anything specific that we are using. So yeah, so we are using Z stack because we want to show that progress bar on the entire view. So as soon as user clicks on the save button, we want to show a progress bar, but we want to cover that view with a rectangle, so user cannot interact until we have actually saved the model. Although it's going to be very instant, it's going to be fraction of a second, but we still want to protect ourselves, by not letting user interrupt the saving state. Okay, for that reason we are using a Z stack. Now inside the Z stack, we're going to create a V stack. So let's go ahead and create a V stack. And this VStack is going to have basically all the text fields that we're going to use along with the title and all the other property values. Okay, so we're going to have text, which is going to say new favorite place, which is going to act as a title. We're going to give this font a title. Okay, and let's go ahead and set the preferred color scheme as dark for this canvas. Okay, and next we're going to create a group. All right, this group is going to contain all the text fields, and reason we are creating a group, so we can apply text field style modifier for all the text fields. Okay, so we're going to create our text field. We're going to start with the name of the place, and this is going to be bound to our view model dot name. Okay, name is basically a property which is a published property. That means we can directly bind to that, and any changes in that are going to be stored in the name property. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste and create a new binding for city, and this is basically going to be the name of city where this place is located, or this favorite place is located. Country, bound to the country property, and any notes that you want to take. Basically that helps you remind what this place was all about. Okay, then we're going to apply a text field style to all of these. Now this is the benefit of having group, is we are just applying one single modifier, and all the text fields are gonna basically receive that modifier, and you're gonna see that updated right here as soon as we apply that rounded border modifier. Okay, now there's one thing that we want to do is I want to collapse this and add some padding around this VStack, so we have, like, a little bit of breathing room around the VStack. And then let's go ahead and also add some padding in the horizontal direction for all the text fields. So our text fields are nicely tucked in, and, like, they're not touching the edges for the leading or trailing. Next we need is basically a place to display the image. Okay, so we are going to create a spacer first. We're going to add a spacer, and then we're going to create if let for the image we're going to get from view model, and we're going to say if there is an image in the view model, give us that image, and we're going to make that resizable. We're going to set the frame for this guy with width of 200 and height of 200, actually height of 350. We are also going to clip the shape of this, and we're going to clip shape as rounded rectangle with corner radius of 10 points. All right, so this is the case when we have an image. Okay, but if we don't have an image inside the view model, in that case we want to display a sample image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the sample image that we have in our assets called Hawa Mahal, which is located in Jaipur, and I'm going to make this resizable. Okay, and let's go ahead and set a blur on this, and blur is going to be 30 points. All right, so it's, like, barely visible. Let's also set a frame for this guy as 200 and 350, so it takes the same amount of space as the original image is going to take, and then we're going to add the clip shape as well. All right, so this is what our image is going to eventually look like. Now underneath this we're going to basically have a button. This is the button that actually helps us get the image or fetch the image from the internet or Unsplash API, and we're going to simply call a task here, which is a helper. So basically task in SwiftUI helps us make asynchronous calls. Okay, so it is a unit of asynchronous work, and if you don't have a way to basically create an asynchronous work within SwiftUI view, most of the time you're not gonna. So if you use your task block, you can provide or add your await calls inside the task, and they're gonna execute just like normal. You cannot directly call the await functions inside a button, inside a regular action, if they're asynchronous in nature. Now we want to wait for our response to come back, so we're going to say await on viewModel.getImage for the place name, and the place name is going to be viewModel.name. Now right now at this point, basically user can click on get image at any point, and if our image is blank, then we're going to get some random image or maybe an error. So let's go ahead and put a modifier on the button to disable basically the button only and enable button only when the name is not empty. So we're going to add a disabled modifier on observing the viewModel.name, and we're going to say if it is empty, then disable the button, and this is what our button is going to turn into. Okay, next thing we need to do, or right before this, we're going to actually define the button style, and we're going to say the button is going to be bordered button. Let's go ahead and also set the border shape, and I want to choose capsule for this example. So we're going to have basically a capsule size button, and this is basically what it's going to look like when the button is not disabled. Okay, and when button is disabled, it's going to basically be inactive and in gray font color. Okay, now right after this, we're going to add another spacer. Now this spacer is going to be basically the spacing between our image view button and the actual save and cancel button. Now save and cancel button, they're going to go inside an H stack. So let's go ahead and create that H stack, which is going to host two buttons. First one is going to have an action of save. So we're going to call save place action here. Okay, and this is going to have a label with the title as save and system image name as doc.fill.badge.plus. Okay, so it's basically going to have that plus sign for the image and or the icon, and then save as the label name. Okay, let's go ahead and set the button style as border prominent. Okay, then right after this, we're going to create another button. Now this next button is going to have a role because it's a dismiss button. So we want to give it a destructive role, which is going to turn the button into a red color background. Okay, so we're going to simply say button role is going to be destructive. And the action is going to be dismiss, which is going to be a function call. Dismiss is the variable that we cached, fetching the environment property from the key path called dismiss. Okay, so we're going to simply call that, and then we're going to have our label. Now for this guy, label is going to be called cancel, and the label itself is going to be x.square.fill. Okay, and we're also going to give this a button style, and we're going to give this a button style border prominent. Okay, so you're going to have this these save and cancel buttons right here. Now what we want to do is right underneath our VStack. So this is our entire VStack. So let me collapse this so you can see. Right underneath this VStack, we want to add a rectangle, which is going to basically act as a show progress. So we're going to simply start with a rectangle first with a foreground style color dot secondary dot opacity 0.8. So you're gonna see this whole screen basically covered by this opaque view, okay, this sort of like semi-transparent view, and on the top of this there's gonna be a progress view which is gonna set stating text saving new place. Okay, so it's gonna have this progress bar and it's gonna say saving new place. Okay, so it's gonna show up right at the center. Now this whole thing right now is being displayed all the time, but we want to make sure that we only display this when show progress is true. So we're gonna basically simply wrap this with if viewModel dot show progress is true, then only show this. Okay, now one other thing that we want to actually do is we want to make sure that user cannot swipe and disable this modal when it is launched. Okay, and the way we can actually do that is by using a modifier called interactive dismiss disabled, and we want to display that. We want to basically enable that so user can only exit out of this sheet is by either clicking cancel button or by clicking the save button. All right, now one last thing we want to do is we want to create a private function. We're not going to populate this yet, but this is going to be a function which is going to be responsible for saving the place when the save place button is clicked. So we're going to have private func save place, and this is basically going to have all the logic for saving the place. All right, so let's go ahead and enable or call this function when we have our save button called. There we go, save place. Now at this point, what we're going to do is in our save place, we want to make sure that we actually dismiss our view. Okay, so we're going to simply call the dismiss right away. Okay, but like, you know, when the saving logic is in place, at that time we're going to actually modify this slightly from where it is called and all that stuff. Okay, all right, with that our view is ready now, and as you can see, now you can actually interact with it. So let me go ahead and so this is actually a bug inside this, but let's go ahead and use Taj Mahal as an example. Let's get an image for Taj Mahal, and let's see if we can actually see any response. So there we go. We have, like, you know, we are getting some nice images. Let's go ahead and choose the one actually that displays truly what Taj Mahal is, because it can get some random images. This is the place, but I want to get a better picture. So this is actually better. So I would save this one, and like, we can actually fill out rest of the information and then, like, you know, get our view ready. Okay, so now with that, our add new place view is complete. All right, and in the next video we're gonna continue to move forward and create our home view, and the home view is basically where we're gonna call this save new place from to launch the sheet, and that's where you're gonna see the newly introduced properties that actually work with the modal sheet detent, and basically how you can further configure them to make them look more transparent and stuff like that using materials. Okay, so I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.